It is 10:13 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 4th day of June 2025. This is episode 1108 of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin goes all in on MAGA. Yes, because Bitcoin is a person. It's a company with a CEO, and it apparently can make makes these decisions. So Bitcoin, your Bitcoin has decided to go all in on MAGA. According to the Wall Street Journal, we're going to talk about propaganda today. It's just going to have to happen. The FUD is never relenting. It's never going to relent. If you think at one point or another you're going to wake up and we're not going to have to deal with this garbage, you are sorely mistaken. This Wall Street Journal article is one of the worst ones I've ever seen. We're going to get into it. But it's not really going to matter for those people, because people like Tim Bourma, or Bouma, I can't pronounce his name, Bouma, over there on Nostr, has created something that just reminds me there's no stopping this train. And it's not the Nostr train. It's not just the Bitcoin train. It's not just NFC payments and eCash and Lightning. It's the mindset of the amount of people that are essentially forming an army that's just, we're just sick of it. We're just sick of everything. I don't think the powers that be understand what is fomenting right before their very eyes. I'm going to talk about that, as well as the Vegas 2025 Bitcoin conference. There's an interesting take on that by Bitcoin Magazine from an author named Joachim Book, and it's probably not going to be what you think it is. Odds of South Korea for their Bitcoin reform has changed. Maybe have gotten better because they elected a new president, and we'll get into that one. 21 Capital is in the news, as well as a Spanish company and a couple of other companies that we will talk about. In fact, there's like 61 publicly listed companies holding Bitcoin. 61. Remember when it was just strategy? And that was like, what, 2.5 years ago? Maybe 3? I think it was like, I'm safe in saying 2.5 years ago. And now there's 61. That's not going to stop either, even if you want it to or not, because BlackRock, well, there's a derivative product of BlackRock for their spot or for their Bitcoin ETF. Actually, it's not. It's a derivative of the spot Bitcoin ETF of BlackRock, except it's over there in Russia. All of that we're going to get into. We're going to start with the obvious, well, the Wall Street Journal. I remember a time when the Wall Street Journal could be counted on for actual news and not outrage marketing. But times have changed, and we're going to get into this one. Let's see who's writing this drivel, if it even says. Oh, a guy named Kevin Dugan, Vicky Huang, and Caitlin Ostroff apparently all came together to lie through their teeth because they're too dumb to be able to do it on their own, I guess. But the cryptocurrency world was once the province of libertarians, ladies and gentlemen, libertarians. And we kept our distance from the government. Well, these days, it is in the midst of an all-out MAGA takeover. Take the scene at the industry's flagship event. Oh, fuck, my God, it's so bad already. Industry's flagship event in Las Vegas last week. Star speakers at the Bitcoin conference included a parade, a veritable parade of Trump officials and Washington allies. Crypto boosters, including billionaire Bitcoin evangelist Michael Saylor, got a private audience with Vice President J.D. Vance to push their favored policies. A retail store hawked Trump hats, bobbleheads, martini glasses, and sequined shirts. 2 Tesla Cybertrucks were wrapped in orange, Bitcoin's unofficial color. A felon pardoned by Trump was feted at a welcome back party that cost $300 a person. Quote, The Bitcoin conference right now is basically a right-wing rally, said Richard Scottford, a 53-year-old Bitcoin owner who lives in Costa Rica. He said being enamored with powerful people is against the ethos of Bitcoin. The industry, a realm of outsiders who have long clamored for legitimacy, has never had a friendlier U.S. regime in power. President Trump raised millions from crypto executives and is delivering a lot of what the industry craved, dropping Biden-era lawsuits against crypto companies and backing legislation to bring digital tokens into the financial mainstream. Despite the winning streak, Trump's fervent embrace is causing discomfort to some factions of the crypto world, including a wing that has argued since Bitcoin's early days that cozying up to any government is a bad idea. Even some of President's supporters say that they have cringed at the Trump family's push into every corner of the business, from Bitcoin buying to mining to meme coins. Such moves might raise crypto's profile, but they also create substantial conflicts of interest and could jeopardize the industry's push for widespread acceptance, the critics say. Some early Bitcoin stalwarts are wary of the government entering the market. Patrick Merck, who spent years trying to establish the industry's legitimacy as co-founder of the Bitcoin Foundation, warned that Trump's plan to create a national strategic reserve for Bitcoin could be counterproductive. Quote, "It's supposed to be a political, value-neutral network. If people believe that the United States government has a very large stake in its success, I don't know how people will feel about that in other parts of the world," end quote. Crypto's comeback wasn't a given. Things looked promising a few years ago when entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried, shabbily attired notwithstanding, turned the exchange FTX into a phenomenon worthy of naming rights for a Miami arena and a Super Bowl ad starring Larry David. That gave way to the scandalous FTX collapse in 2022. Criminal prosecutions, Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and ramped up regulatory scrutiny. The mood is decidedly different now. MAGA. Bitcoin is trading near record highs. The industry is optimistic that with Trump's backing, legislation to create regulatory framework for stablecoins, tokens that are pegged to real currency such as the dollar, will accelerate the mainstreaming of crypto. Big banks, including J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Citigroup, are exploring whether to issue their own joint stablecoin. The Wall Street Journal reported that new Labor Department guidance could make it easier to bring cryptocurrency into 401k plans. At the conference, as the conference showed, crypto's elite executives are hardly outsiders. They are the ultimate Washington insiders in a ballroom on the third floor at the Venetian Hotel, past 20 security guards and 3 dividers. Count them, 1, 2, 3 dividers. Bitcoin enthusiasts pitched Vance in an intimate, hour-long private meeting. Saylor, the executive chairman of Strategy, a company that has made stocking up on Bitcoin the centerpiece of its business, advocated for tax leniency for Bitcoin miners who perform the complex computational feats needed to unlock units of the currency. Saylor argued that miners should only pay taxes on sales of its tokens. He likened the status quo to if a movie studio had to pay taxes on a script based on the prediction that it would be a blockbuster. The event was organized by Gemini, a crypto exchange controlled by the Winklevoss twins, the Facebook founding Winklevoss twins. Name cards seen by a Journal reporter bore the logo for MAGA Incorporated, a pro-Trump super PAC. Donald Trump Jr. and the White House crypto advisor David Sachs were among other people at the event. Sam Kazemman, the founder of stablecoin company Frax, which I've never heard of in my entire life, pitched the ability for taxpayers to use dollar-pegged tokens to pay taxes. Vance didn't indicate what he might do, but spoke about the need to make the industry more legitimate and said 3 people who were there. God, this just gets worse and worse. Last year, Trump used the Bitcoin conference to declare himself a major industry ally. By this year's event, He and his family were part of the industry. Trump Media and Technology Group, the president's social media company, announced plans to raise $2.5 billion to buy Bitcoin, mimicking the playbook of Strategy's Sailor. That would give the Trumps control over one of the largest private Bitcoin stashes. Quote, "It is the hottest asset on earth, hands down. Not even close right now," said Eric Trump, one of the president's sons. Quote, "There is no conflict of interest. I have nothing to do with Washington, D.C. The very same people that were coming after the crypto community were coming after us viciously for no reason whatsoever," Eric Trump said, "and it brought an industry and our family, quite frankly, together." End quote. Backers of a national Bitcoin reserve say it would lend to the prestige of the United States government to the currency. It's a good thing, too, this is a quote, because the more people know about Bitcoin, obviously, the higher the value is going to be. TJ Slingby, who works for a crypto advocacy group in California, said of the administration's support for Bitcoin. A Trump family-controlled venture, World Liberty Financial, has also launched a stablecoin that would be affected directly by legislation that is advancing in Congress. Tina Matiaha, if that's the way you pronounce it, a former telecom worker from New Zealand, has also been into Bitcoin for 5 years and came to the conference for the first time, drawn by Trump's political message of anti-wokeness. She is troubled by Trump's own foray into crypto coins. The top holders of Trump's meme coin recently were invited to dinner with the president, drawing criticism from Democrats and government watchdog groups. Quote, "I'd not buy it, even though I respect the man," Tina said. Bitcoin was championed in the early days by libertarian idealists who dreamed of a currency that was totally private and secure, outside the reach of governments and financial institutions. Earlier conferences were concerned with the finer details of money and personal liberty, and they were attacked by more paranoid types and said Bitcoin developer Taj Dryja, quote, "We were like, well, are they going to bomb this place and kill us all because they want to destroy Bitcoin?" he said. Eventually, a more pragmatic approach took hold, one that sees joining with governments and financial institutions as the way to make Bitcoin valuable in daily life, as a store of value, or as a way to buy things. Quote, "As much as the early adherents to Bitcoin were libertarians that imagined that it could exist in its own world, we do live in the real world," said Dan Moorhead, the CEO of Pantera Capital, a cryptocurrency-focused investment firm. Quote, "And the real world has regulators, and the government will be involved," end quote. The MAGA impact on crypto land was on display with the celebration of Ross Ulbricht. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The founder of Silk Road, a market for illicit drugs that use Bitcoin as payment for transactions. Keep a very close ear to this section, people, please. In January, Trump granted Ulbricht a full pardon of his conviction on drug trafficking charges, saying his life sentence was too harsh. During Ulbricht's 2015 trial, prosecutors said Ulbricht had ordered the assassinations of 6 people, which he denied. There was no evidence anyone was killed. Quote, "He said he would free me, and he did, period. He's a man of integrity," Ulbricht said at the conference. The conference also held an auction for clothes that Ulbricht wore while incarcerated, as well as his prison ID and paintings he made while in custody. One painting sold for more than a Bitcoin, or about $105,000. And that's the end of the article. So they end with a lie. There's lies all the way through this. But the Wall Street Journal, what used to be a well-respected business newspaper, has fallen into outrage marketing and straight-up lying. Now, you're going to say, where have you been? I know, Wall Street Journal's been like this forever. This is not getting any better. It is very clear that the people who have been in power of the messaging, the propaganda, for the last, I'm going to say, let's just call it 8 years, right? The people that are hysterical all the time. The people that are telling us that we're all going to die because we're breathing carbon dioxide out of our lungs. That whole crew, they are going to die on this hill. Not just the Bitcoin hill. The various hills that each one of these groups of people have created for themselves, the hysteria, they're going to die on it. They don't care that they're wrong. They don't even probably know that they're wrong. They're going to continue to die on the hill. Here we have one of the very worst offenses in this space that I've ever come across, is this unrelenting reminder that Ross Ulbricht had charges that he tried to arrange the killing of somebody. That never happened. Here, what they say is that he was on trial for ordering the assassinations of 6 people. There was no evidence anyone was killed. No, hun, there was no evidence that he ever engaged in that activity whatsoever. Those were false charges. We all know this. And yet here we have the Wall Street Journal acting like they're People magazine. This is what we're up against. And we're going to win, too. You know why? Because people like Tim Bouma, B-O-U-M-A. Bouma? Is that it? Tim, if you're listening, please tell me how to pronounce your last name. But Tim says on Nostr, I just created my own fucking payment card network. Good night. And then he's got a screenshot. There's 3 buttons. One says test NFC right. The other one says back to wallet. And the other one says pay by NFC cards. And there's a little box that says that the payment for the NFC card is going to be 21 Satoshis. What I'm getting at here, I have no idea. This is only a screenshot. I think maybe he's naming it Safebox because he's got hashtag Safebox, SAFEBOX, on this particular note. But none of this is the point. I had written something, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, and all it was a list. And it said Bitcoin, Lightning Network, eCash, Nostr, artificial intelligence, and the human mind. That was it. No prologue, no post-log, no nothing. What I was saying with that particular note, if you saw it or if you didn't, was that these are the tools, this is what's in the toolbox right now, and it's honestly all we need for people like Tim to just create their own fucking payment card network. Do you think the people that are in power right now are going to be able to stop Tim? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they go arrest him. There used to be, well, there's still the meme from what is it? Not Curb Your Enthusiasm, Arrested Development. There are dozens of us. No, hun. There's a lot more than a dozen of us. And having eCash and Lightning Network and Bitcoin and the ability for people like Tim, and I don't know if he vibe coded it or I don't know anything about Tim other than somebody I follow on Nostr. So I don't really know if he's a coder. Maybe he's vibe coding. I don't care. What I'm saying is that these things are being spun up at a rate of which it is impossible for any human-based institution to squelch at all. They're going to lose this war. The people that want to die on that hill, they will definitely be dead on that hill. The people that want to stop Bitcoin and these payment structures that regular people are building for themselves and each other will not be stopped. They will not be stopped. The only people that are going to be stopped are the people that decided that they wanted to pick the dumbest hill to die on ever. Yeah, they're going to be dead on that hill. Everything else is based around people like Tim, who creates their own fucking payment card network. From Bitcoin, Lightning Network, eCash, Nostr, artificial intelligence, and his own human mind. Do you think for a second that this can be stopped? If you do, sell all of your Bitcoin. Just get out now, put it all into fiat, and go die on the hill with the rest of the stupid people. Now, Vegas come down, or was Bitcoin 2025 too noisy? There's a lot of people that are not happy with the way that Bitcoin 2025 went down. I only saw it from afar, so I can only speak of it from what I saw, right? So I saw like tweets about it. I saw nostr notes about it. That's all I really saw. And honestly, it was kind of, going to be honest, it was nauseating. It really was nauseating, which is why I'm kind of surprised that Bitcoin Magazine, who puts on the Bitcoin conference every year, published this. And I honestly think it's kind of cool that they did. Joaquin Book is writing this one. Shitcoin Magazine tweeted Bitcoin educator and author Knut Svanholm about the event that BTC Incorporated, the parent company of Bitcoin Magazine, organized in Las Vegas last week. Dancing cows dashed across my feed. Quote, "It's a political convention now," end quote, I overheard two attendees saying as they exited the Nakamoto stage, heads shaking. Nigel Farage, the inflammatory British politician and leader of Reform UK, was shouting on stage about becoming Prime Minister. A somewhat calmer personality, President or Vice President J.D. Vance, spoke about crypto and thanked Coinbase. Word on the online street is that Bitcoin 2025 was captured by political and shitcoiny interest. Our own technical editor, Shinobi, opted out of mass surveillance and bailed for freer pastures at the Oslo Freedom Forum. Eric Kaysen was uncharacteristically polite, quote, shitcoin adjacent, though he was there in person happily signing the crypto sovereignty book that Bitcoin Magazine Books published back in 2023. Quote, "None of my Bitcoiner friends come here anymore," said Ben, an entrepreneur who runs a Bitcoin business, on the fence about coming back next year. Whenever I mention that I work for Bitcoin Magazine, I usually have to field questions about shitcoinery and political shilling. Quote, "Are you a MAGA dude now?" Coming to Vegas was inspection time for me, or at least a chance to see what it is that troubles so many people. With the glamour of the strip itself and its sensory overloaded, it's easy to be dazzled. Plus, it was the first time I had left Fort Europa for the land of the free in years. First time in Vegas and first time at an American Bitcoin event. It's easy for me to simply dismiss the haters by paraphrasing Taylor. Haters gonna hate, 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 hate. Oh my God. You quoted Taylor Swift? What is wrong with you, dude? While sitting down in the Whale Pass area called the Deep, a hipster-looking gentleman started talking to me about how Bitcoin is fundamentally broken and that I should investigate his energy-based shitcoin instead. Waiting for Vance's speech in the main hall, I was introduced to three young dudes dressed to perfection and barely out of college at the conference to, quote, land a job in the industry, i.e. grifters. A mid-60s technology dude interjected himself into the conversation, bragged about how he worked on tech for Microsoft in the 90s, and explained how blockchain, not Bitcoin, is the future, only to have us scan the NFC card he had implanted in his left hand. Ugh. Thus, it wasn't difficult to see the things all these people online had objected to. Our conference was a party or an elaborate Bitcoin extraction scheme, a circus, a shitcoin test, or a stablecoin mania. Plus, Daniel Princey basically had a tweet that they've listed here, and it's just the meme of we're throwing a Bitcoin conference, and then the guy sticking his head through the door says, tell the truth. And then the woman says, well, there might be some other projects there. And then he sticks his head through the door and he's like, be honest. And then she says something else. And then there's the punchline. You know the drill, right? But they're not wrong. Honestly, you don't even have to look. Here's an underappreciated order to the known universe. To each successful movement or phenomenon, parasites and fraudsters are drawn. It's why the shitcoin guys are around Bitcoin events and why the politicians are pandering to our cause. Vegas itself is the center of gravity for that sort of thing. Gambling, nudity, alcohol, prostitution, and other dopamine-inducing stimulants. I first titled this take what hookers in Vegas can teach us about politicians at Bitcoin 2025. I'm pausing just to say, why didn't you use that headline? That is an awesome headline. What hookers in Vegas can teach us about politicians at Bitcoin 2025. Yeehaw! The simple observation is that fraudsters, grifters, and scammers go to where the value is. Parasites feed off of healthy, growing, flourishing organisms. Scammers flooding in, as Tomer Strolight post-conference tweeted, is thus the least surprising thing ever. We're succeeding, growing, and becoming, if not respectable, then at least a household name. The Financial Times and Wall Street Journal covering us feel somewhere between, quote, then they laugh at you and then they fight you stages. Running around meeting people, hardcore Bitcoiners I've only ever met online, authors and writers and editors I've worked with, they were all in Vegas, since that was the place to be, and attending the sum total of 3 presentations, I felt that Wayne Vaughn of Bitcoin First described it well, who says, by the way, here's his tweet, the Bitcoin Conference 2025 was different and in many ways disappointing. The good, private events were excellent opportunities to reconnect with old friends and meet new people. Bitcoin has grown up and we're finally legit. The neutral take, the conference was dominated by politics and traditional finance giving the nod to Bitcoin. The bad, no major Bitcoin or technology product announcements. Show floor was useless. The quality of the vendors was substantially lower than Nashville. There you go. So you can kind of tell what Wayne Vaughn was saying there. You can just meet people. You can just do things. To make an obvious analogy, the internet is littered with porn, gambling, and, God forbid, cat videos, and it's the most successful technology in a generation. You don't have to look. You can just work and provide value instead of wasting away your life talking to shitcoiners or being annoyed at politicians and other fraudsters doing their things. Quote, cozying up to any government is a bad idea, concluded the Wall Street Journal piece, citing a wing of purist Bitcoin that we all feel. Yes, agreed. But the puritanism that is opposite condemns us to irrelevancy, belittles and betrays the broader mission. So yeah, the grifters, parasites, politicians, and the financial engineers are here. Good for them. That they're here is a sign of victory. Knock me over with a feather, haters. He makes some good points in this particular article, and that was the end of it. And yeah, I'm going to continue to be relatively disappointed with Bitcoin 2025. Because some of you will say, and probably rightly so, well, you're the ones that let them in. How come you couldn't identify the grifters and keep them out? I don't know. Do we really want to get into that kind of censorship? I mean, honestly, just take a step back and go, is it worth it? If you don't want to go to the Bitcoin conference, don't go. I think that that's really the message here. There are other places to go. I think that the time is right for, I know, I'm going to say it, yet another Bitcoin conference, but a good one. You know, like one that doesn't fall into shitcoinery. Maybe one that does say, you know what? I know you're a shitcoiner. No, you don't get to buy the ticket. Or rather, you bought the ticket, but here's your refund. There's the door. Get the fuck out. Okay, maybe. I don't know. But just because I don't like what happened at the Bitcoin conference, not only this year and not only last year, but honestly, kind of the year before. But it doesn't mean that I hated everything about those conferences, or at least what I saw. I mean, and I didn't go to any of them, so I don't really have a whole lot of legs to stand on, but there was shitcoinery at all of them. Even at the one in 2019, there was probably some shitcoiners walking around, and that was the very first one. So I just don't think we should get our panties in too much of a twist about this whole thing. Because South Korea, where crypto reform, or the chances of crypto reform rising as Lee Jae-myung wins the presidency. Viz Maya V is going to tell us a little bit about it, because a country shaken by martial law just 6 months ago has elected a brand new leader, and they have plans for crypto reform. Lee Jae-myung, the leader of South Korea's Democratic Party, was sworn in as president on Wednesday after securing a decisive victory in a June 3rd snap election. With 99% of the votes counted, Lee won 49.42% to his rival Kim Moon-soo's 41.15% amid a historic 79.4% voter turnout. It's pretty good. That's the highest since 1997. Lee, who narrowly lost to Yoon in 2022, had used that earlier campaign to experiment with NFTs bearing his image and pledges in an effort to connect with younger voters. Oh, great, NFTs. In his latest run, he expanded on those ideas, pledging to legalize spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds and launch a won-pegged stablecoin to prevent capital flight. Quote, "We need to establish a won-backed stablecoin market to prevent national wealth from leaking overseas," he said. Quote, "With a Lee Jae-myung now elected, the likelihood of seeing a spot ETF approval has significantly increased," Min Zhang, an analyst at Presto Research, told Decrypt. So the guy's not exactly effectively a complete Bitcoiner. He's clearly dabbled in shitcoins in the form of NFTs, and he is all over the stablecoin genre, for lack of a better term. But there's no way that he wouldn't be able to do that. There's absolutely no way any of these people are going to be able to stay away from stablecoins. And honestly, it's going to deflect the stablecoin issue. As much as people hate it, what's going to happen is it's going to deflect a lot of political energy away from CBDCs. Unless you're talking about the European Union. Yet another bunch of people who have chosen a particularly stupid hill to die upon, and they will die upon that hill. But be that as it may, even if you hate stablecoins in their very existence, it's probably a hell of a lot better than CBDCs. And I'm not even going to get into why. I'm just going to leave it right there. If you want to fight with me, fine. In fact, I encourage it. You do so on Nostr, or throw me a boostergram or two and tell me how wrong I am. But I would much rather it be a stablecoin situation than these CBDCs. As to whether or not a stablecoin or a won-linked stablecoin is going to prevent South Korean capital from leaking out of the country, I think that is a fucking fantasy of this particular new president. No, your won-backed stablecoin is not going to hold up. People are going to be using Tether inside your country, and then you'll try to make that illegal, and it's not going to work, and you will find some hill to go die upon, and you will die upon that hill, while Tim Booma decides to make yet another fucking credit card payment for people in South Korea, or another, NFC payment card for people in South Korea. You don't hold a chance. You have nothing at all to combat us with. We are going to win. There's nothing you can do. It's over. Go find a hill, make sure it's particularly stupid, and go die upon it. And then, when you wake up in the afterlife, maybe you'll be hungry for BTHC nodes, which are chocolates, from a good friend over at OshiGood.us. Oshi. His name is Oshi. Always remember, he makes all kinds of stuff. He makes hodl bars, which I think are delicious. He makes hodl butter, which is pecan butter. I've had not his pecan butter, but I have had pecan butter before. If you thought peanut butter was good, oh my God. So go over to OshiGood.us and check out BTHC nodes. Each bite contains approximately 15 to 20 milligrams of THC, not CBD, not CBCs, or what was CBD, cannabinoid, CBD. I don't know. I can't remember. This is the shit that gets you high. Let's just say it that way. Infused with a blend of ghee butter and my proprietary hodl butter. That's the aforementioned, pecan butter. There are 10 bites per jar, which is what you get on an order, And here's his suggested use. You start with one node, then wait 30 to 45 minutes. If you're only feeling a light effect, feel free to enjoy another. Taste, chill, and enjoy responsibly. Here are the ingredients: dates, pecan butter, peanut flour, cacao powder, peppermint extract, the aforementioned THC, ghee butter, cinnamon, vanilla extract, and sea salt. And they're all covered in chocolate, so they look like little chocolates. This is important. Do not leave shit like this out for your kids to find. There's no way for your children to know that they are not for their consumption. This is your responsibility. This is not Oshi's responsibility. You know what you're buying. You know what's contained in them. It's your job when you take possession of this shit to keep them out of reach of children. There's not a 6-year-old on this planet that needs to be ingesting 15 to 20 milligrams of THC, but that's your issue. You will pay 30,000 Satoshis for an order. Again, there are 10 chocolates in a jar. You're going to pay 30,000 for them. If you want 10% off, use the code Bitcoin and in the coupon code. That way, Oshi knows that I made a sale for them. I might actually try these myself. I'm not sure because I have not really had, marijuana products in a long, long time. You never know how it's going to affect me, so I'm going to think about it, but I may very well do that. Again, go to Oshigood, OSHIGOOD.US, not com.us, Oshigood.us, Oshigood.us. Buy the BTHC nodes. Make sure you keep them out of reach of your children if you have any, and your dogs and cats, in case they're weird like that. Pay 30,000 sats. Oshi will know to give you a 10% discount. Actually, he won't give you a 10% discount. That's right. I don't have that worked out with Oshi. He needs to know that I made the sale. So use Bitcoin and as the coupon code. You will not get 10% off. That's for one of my other vendors. Sorry about that, Oshi. I didn't mean to actually screw that up for you. Just let him know that you bought it from me. That way he can determine whether or not he finds the sale valuable. So you support Oshi, Oshi supports me, and I can support you by bringing you the news that you can use. Let's get on to the rest of this one. 21 Capital receives 37,000 Bitcoin from investing partners. So it's actually happening in this particular case from Bitcoin News. Alex Larry writing, it is definitely happening. In a massive vote of confidence for a new Bitcoin-focused company, Tether and Bitfinex have moved over 37,000 Bitcoin worth $3.9 billion to digital treasury firm 21 Capital. This is one of the largest Bitcoin transactions in recent history. The announcement came from Paulo Ardoino, CEO of Tether and CTO of Bitfinex, through multiple posts on Twitter. According to Ardoino, the transfers were part of a pre-funding round for the launch of 21 Capital, a new company that will lead the Bitcoin treasury space. Quote, Tether Group is moving 10,500 BTC to this Bitcoin address as part of the pre-funding of SoftBank's investment in 21 Capital, Ardoino said. 21 Capital is a new Bitcoin treasury firm led by Jack Mallers, CEO of Strike and founder of Zap. The company is backed by Tether, Bitfinex, SoftBank, and Cantor Fitzgerald. The company will go public via a SPAC, SPAC merger with Cantor Equity Partners, and it will trade under the ticker XXI on the NASDAQ. After the merger was announced, CEP's stock price skyrocketed from $11 to just under $60. That's almost a 6x increase in Cantor Equity Partners stock price. They haven't even put XXI on the NASDAQ yet. Just keep that shit in mind, guys. Keep that shit in mind. This is going to happen. And all the people that are really, really in a snit that these things exist, these Bitcoin treasury companies exist, how can you combat it? Make sure you buy Bitcoin. Let's run the numbers. Futures and commodities, West Texas Intermediate is, well, all your energy prices are sucking today. 1.15% down to the downside for West Texas Intermediate. That's 62.68 a barrel. Brent North Sea down 1 1/4 to 64.79. Natural gas down a half to $3.70 per gallon, or 1,000 cubic feet. And gasoline is down 2 1/4% to $2.03 a gallon. Gold and all the red metal rocks are doing fairly well today. Gold is up 0.75 point to 34.03 and 6 dimes. Silver is crawling sideways. Platinum is up almost 2%. Copper is up 1 1/3. Palladium is the only one in the red. It's down 1 3/4. In lumber, everything is mostly in the green today. Biggest winner is rough rice, 2 1/3 to the upside. Biggest loser is lumber, 1% to the downside. Meanwhile, live cattle is up well over a full point. Lean hogs are up almost a half, and feeder cattle are up 0.87%. Meanwhile, the Dow is crab walking sideways, but in the green. The S&P is up 0.2%, NASDAQ is up 0.3%, and the S&P Mini is up 1/4 point. Apparently, Reddit is suing Anthropic for breach of contract and unfair competition. So that is breaking news from CNBC, and I don't give a shit. $105,080 gives us a $2.09 trillion market cap on Bitcoin. You can get 31.0 ounces of shiny metal rocks with your 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 19,874,147.72 of. Average fees per block are low, 0.04 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. There are 6 blocks carrying 13,800 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 5 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 4. No minor capitulation yet. 908 exahashes per second is what I'm seeing as the hash rate. And from, let's see. I forgot. From Meta wins and losses, which was the day before yesterday. I'll talk about that. The day before yesterday's episode of Bitcoin. And I've got Aggie Chew with 1,000 sats says, Chechnya my ass. Sorry about that. If you ever come to Europe, I will give you a tour. Czech. Did I say Chechnya? Oh, God, I'm so sorry, Aggie. Psyduck 710 says, Psyduck. 622 from Will says nothing. He literally writes that, says nothing. Yodel with 511 says, Psyduck unzipping his boots by 1 sat each episode. I see you. Progressively worse with 500 says thank you. And let's see, Turkey with 500 says nothing. And thank you, sir, with 500 says you're welcome. Thank you, sir, with another 500 says sperm bank. God's death. 237 says thank you, sir, no thank you. Permanerd with 210 says please donate to the show so NunyaBidness can play with his kid before he dies and they fight over his. And then he gives an npub and over his leather mint wallet. Yeah, well, Fountain.fm doesn't resolve npubs very well, so keep that in mind. Cycross with 100 says, lol, Chechnya is not the same as Chechnya. Thankfully, you said Southwest, not Southeast. Yes, Southwest. Okay. Perhaps the donation was from a Fed, comes from Nostr Gang with 100. And that's it. Okay, so, Pies with 100 says, thank you, sir, no, thank you. Okay, yesterday, I didn't bring you an episode of Bitcoin in because I spent 2 hours on another podcast with Daniel Prince and the Once Bitten podcast. We talked about the Forest Walker. Daniel said that episode should be dropping sometime like maybe 2 weeks from now, maybe a little bit sooner, maybe a little bit later. It depends. But yeah, that's where I was. And my voice was pretty much shot and time was pretty much done for the day for me. There was just no way I could get another episode out. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news. You can use Spanish company Vanity, Vanadi. That's kind of a cute little name. Vanity Coffee has bet on Bitcoin. They've made a $1.1 billion, that's billion with a B, dollar investment. This is out of Atlas 21, by the way. Vanity Coffee, a well-known Spanish coffee shop chain, is preparing for a major shift in its business model through a Bitcoin investment worth over $1.1 billion. The company plans to transform itself from a simple coffee distributorship into an entity centered around the leading cryptocurrency. Salvador Marti, chairman of the board of directors, has outlined a clear vision for the company's future, seeking authorization to implement a Bitcoin accumulation strategy with a maximum budget of 1 billion euros, according to documentation submitted to BME Growth. The strategy involves using convertible financing lines, think senior notes, to support the Bitcoin acquisition, following the model successfully pioneered by Strategy. Marty has already demonstrated his conviction by purchasing 5 Bitcoin for approximately $500,000 2 weeks ago. Vanity Coffee's decision comes at a critical moment for the company, which reported losses of $3.7 million in 2024, exceeding its annual revenues by nearly $600,000. The GameStop episode offers a relevant case study. The American company, facing similar difficulties, opted to purchase Bitcoin through a debt securities issuance, acquiring a total of 4,710 Bitcoin. Vanity Coffee's initiative is part of a broader global movement from companies from various industries embracing Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, from Chinese logistics firms to football clubs. The phenomenon of corporate adoption is crossing both geographic and sectoral boundaries. So there you go. The next, by the way, the next Vanity Coffee board meeting, which is scheduled for June 29th, will mark the pivotal moment for the Spanish company. Approval of the $1.1 billion strategy could trigger further investments from other corporations. If they do, it'll be mostly probably European companies. This Vanity might be, because here's what we've seen. American companies and Japanese companies. Not really European companies, especially not European companies that are in the EU. Yeah, we got a couple of United Kingdom football clubs. There may be a European Union football club, and while they are technically businesses, I tend to kind of separate that out because sports to me it's not the same as selling a retail good. Yeah, sure, you're selling t-shirts and shit like that, but that's not your major business line. If Vanity Coffee does this, and God forbid it works for them because they're in the hole, it looks like they're probably doing poorly because nobody has any money left over, nowhere in the world to go buy coffee, right? Like even Starbucks looks like it might be sucking some swamp water, given the looks of their parking lot, at least the ones that I've seen around my neck of the woods. They're not exactly as full as they used to be. So if it works for Vanity, other European Union companies might go, holy shit, now we've really got to do it. So that would be America, and then Japan, and then the European Union, and everything else falls. Everything else falls after that. And again, I understand people are really, really worried about Bitcoin's future with this whole Bitcoin treasury company fad that seems to be popping up. Is it really a fad? Well, I don't know. You tell me. Corporate Bitcoin FOMO seems to have hit like a whole new level. You got a Canadian solar outfit named SolarBank. It just announced that it is putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. I mean, they're not fucking stupid, right? They said it's a hedge against fiat depreciation. Seeing a pattern? Because I'm not done. We got K33AB. That's a Norwegian company. They've dipped in with 10 Bitcoin for their own Bitcoin treasury strategy. They're not really big, but they are symbolically important because small capitalized markets overseas, or rather companies overseas, are looking around going, maybe we'd rather just hold hard money than rotting government bonds. Even the Norwegians are starting to get in on this shit. We already know about South Korea, but yet we've got another South Korean company called K-Wave Media. They've committed to $500 million in Bitcoin. That's $500 million. They're calling it the most secure monetary network on the planet. They even said Bitcoin aligns with the Metaplanet strategy, referring to the Japanese firm that kicked off the trend a few months back. Asia is playing chess with the United States. The tech sector is still scared of Twitter polls. And then you got Similar Scientific. That's a medical device company. They scooped up yet another. We've talked about Similar before, but they've bought another 185 Bitcoin. And that pushes their stack now to 828 Bitcoin, worth just shy of $500 million. Talk about biotech, man. It's not a fintech company, or at least it's not a fintech company yet. It's a company in the health sector, and it now literally owns more Bitcoin than most of Silicon Valley combined, because idiots like Meta and Microsoft and Amazon just aren't towing their end of the line. It's a whole balance sheet reallocation, people. Meta shareholders just sit on their hands and vote against a Bitcoin Treasury protocol or proposal, and other firms are just quietly stacking. And it's the kind of stacking that makes headlines only after it happens. Right? These people have been doing this, like this K-Wave, this K33, and SolarBank. I mean, they're hitting the news now because it's always newsworthy when you find one of these companies that you've never heard of before buying Bitcoin and putting it on their balance sheet. The argument against this, and I get this, is that, David, you're talking about zombie companies. They're losing their ass. Yeah, companies lose their ass all the time. Have you seen a Sears and Roebuck lately? Have you seen a Sears lately? Because Sears and Roebuck, that shit ended like in the 80s. And then it just became Sears. They dropped the whole Roebuck thing. Then it just became Sears, right? You can still go get your kids' Tough Skins, but it was not really the same company. And now, have you seen a Sears in any mall anywhere? Have you seen a how many J.C. Penney's have you seen? These are all anchor stores, by the way. They're all anchor stores for malls and strip malls. They're not here anymore. Not really. I mean, I think J.C. Penney is still alive, but most of their stores have been shuttered. You can't even walk into a Victoria's Secret at a mall anymore and not see some really shitty looking displays. And I mean, it just doesn't look as elegant as it used to look, back in the 90s, hell, even in the 2000s, right? Companies die. People fall, their products and their services fall out of favor with the general public, and new companies rise up. The companies that survive for long are the companies that have been able to pivot. When was the last time you saw a Woolworths? Do you even know what a Woolworths is? I mean, I'm surprised Walgreens is still alive, honestly. There used to be a small chain of stores in West Texas and Texas called Gibson's. And they were from Houston all the way over to Midland, Texas, which spans the entirety of the state. No more. They don't exist. Why? They didn't pivot. The companies that are dying today that pivot to a Bitcoin strategy, that's their Hail Mary. Will it work for all of them? No. Will it work for some of them? Yeah. Has it worked already for a few of them? Oh, hell yeah. Look at Strategy. Talk about a zombie company. They were basically just doing nothing. Nobody even knew about this company. Nobody knew who Michael Saylor was 5 years ago. Now look at it. Doesn't mean it's successful, but is the company dead? Certainly not. Will the company die later? Maybe. I don't know. But as long as we end up in this tumult of markets and people with less and less money to spend, you're going to have more and more companies that would have just died out had it not been for the fact that there's Bitcoin. And they can leverage Bitcoin and the ideal of Bitcoin against people who do have money left, and that would be investors who are dumb enough to buy senior convertible notes because they're going to get some kind of metric on the back side that says this is how much Bitcoin they have per share. I think it's rather dumb myself, but is it just because I think it's dumb, does that mean it's not working? No, it's working, and it's going to continue to work, no matter whether or not we hate it or love it. It doesn't matter. It's basically the last-ditch effort of companies that would otherwise already be closed to stay alive for one more day. It is the resuscitatory necessity of, or rather, it's the resuscitatory properties of Bitcoin that are attracting companies to it, because a lot of these companies are like, nobody's buying our shit, dude. In fact, there are 61 publicly listed companies collectively holding over 3% of the total Bitcoin supply. And this is out of Atlas 21, by the way. The use of Bitcoin as a corporate treasury strategy is reaching unprecedented levels, according to a recent report from Standard Chartered, shared with several industry outlets. There are 61 publicly traded companies collectively holding 3.2% of all the Bitcoin in circulation. Jeff Kendrick, global head of digital asset research at Standard Chartered, revealed that the 61 public firms out of a total of 124, I don't know what that means, now own 673,897 Bitcoin. The report highlights that 58 of the 61 companies analyzed have net asset value multiples above 1, indicating that their market valuation exceeds the value of their net assets. A significant takeaway from the report is the speed at which companies are accumulating Bitcoin. Those 60 companies, considered the strategy copycats, they've doubled their holdings in the past 2 months. Say it again. 60 companies have doubled their Bitcoin holdings in the past 2 months. Not 2 years, not 2 decades. Well, which would be dumb because, well, you know why. 2 months. They have twice as much Bitcoin now as they did 2 months ago. That's 60 of those companies. Over the same period, Strategy added 74,000 Bitcoin compared to the 47,000 acquired by the other firms. This movement continues to expand as new companies announce Bitcoin purchase plans via debt issuance. On January the 3rd, Canadian renewable energy developer SolarBank officially announced its Bitcoin treasury strategy, filing an application to open an account with Coinbase Prime to secure custody services, manage USDC, and set up a non-custodial wallet for its Bitcoin holdings. Meanwhile, Paris-based blockchain group announced a $68 million Bitcoin acquisition, while Norwegian crypto brokerage K33 raised the aforementioned $6.2 million to purchase Bitcoin at the end of May. Okay. It's not going away. We can cry. And people will continue to cry. All the way to Moscow, where BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF futures has debuted in Moscow as the fund hits the top 25. Let's see how this is structured, because they're actually talking about IBIT, which is a spot Bitcoin ETF. It looks like somebody's actually somehow or another constructed something to turn the spot Bitcoin ETF known as IBIT into a derivative. I mean, the fund itself is never going to be a derivative. It technically owns the Bitcoin, but somebody somewhere's screw it. Helen Parts, please, for the love of God, get me out of this. Moscow exchange MOEX, Russia's largest stock exchange, launched futures trading for BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, IBIT, as the fund climbed to the world's top 25 ETFs by asset under management. MOEX introduced a futures contract, there it is, tied to IBIT on June the 4th. That was just today, according to an announcement by that exchange. The new investment product is accessible exclusively to accredited investors, with MOEX planning to introduce qualification testing from June the 23rd. The launch comes as IBIT entered the list of the top 25 ETFs by assets worldwide, with an asset under management of $72.4 billion, according to Bloomberg senior ETF analyst Eric Balchunas. Moscow Exchange's IBIT futures trading debut is the latest crypto investment product launch in Russia since the Bank of Russia authorized financial institutions to offer crypto products to qualified investors in May. Following the green light, major local commercial banks, including Spur and T-Bank, formerly Tinkoff Bank, have started offering investment tools tied to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. But despite the expansion, the Russian central bank remains cautious about direct crypto investments and continues to advise against retail participation in digital asset markets. And that made the retail investors become not happy. Since products like IBIT ETF futures are only available to accredited investors, many retail investors are unimpressed by the latest crypto developments in Russia. I'd be unimpressed too because I can't hold them. Quote, not real ETFs from the United States, just a copy, which does not affect the crypto market in any way, said one disgruntled observer on the news or to the news on the D-Center channel on Telegram. Another commenter hinted that they'd rather directly trade cryptocurrencies on exchanges like Binance than crypto investment products on the MOEX. According to official MOEX data, the number of individuals with brokerage accounts on the MOEX amounted to 36.9 million as of May. Wow. Last month, at least 3.6 million people made transactions on the MOEX stock market, with 315,000 individuals representing qualified private investors. It's a lot bigger numbers than I thought, honestly. BlackRock's IBIT has continued its meteoric rise since its launch in January, and on January the 3rd, the ETF entered the top 25 global asset under management list, a feat achieved in just over a year. Quote, at 1.4 years old, IBIT is the youngest on the list by 9 times. Balchunas wrote on Twitter on Tuesday. Holy shit. It is the after Bitcoin, the youngest asset is the iShares Core MSCE EAFE ETF, and it's 12.6 years old. The next youngest is 13.6 years old, and Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF is a mere 14.7 years old. Holy shit. Quote, it's like an infant hanging out with teenagers or 20-somethings. Quite possibly the most insane IBIT start yet. Or stat, sorry. BlackRock's IBIT Bitcoin ETF has been breaking records. Historical launch in January. In just 3 months, it raked in $15.5 billion in inflows, which placed it among the top 10 longest inflow streaks for any ETF in the history of all ETFs. Nothing stops this train. So, oh, and by the way, just to end it off here, Lightning Network Daemon, or the LND, version 0.19.0 beta has been released. So if you are so inclined, and you are using Lightning, and you are using the Lightning Network Daemon to have your Lightning node, you might want to go check out version 0.19.0. It is in beta, but apparently it touts replace by fee cooperative close, improve payment reliability, and more. So if you want to find out what the hell that more is, you can go do that. Other than that, I've got other fish to fry, so I'm going to end it here, and I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.